And so how grateful I am to be a part of something bigger than myself, to be a part of this community of seekers, a community of awakened consciousness, the heart of love, the heart of the divine. How good it is to know that that's all that is. That's what's happening here in our gathering. The heart of the divine I am presence is swelling and filling. It is a living intelligence that knows itself, always in integrity with its own name and nature. How good it is to know that it is the creative force, the source, the only causation. It is the space between the atoms, and it is a living love intelligence, love beauty. I don't know a lot of things, but I know one thing for sure, and that is that God is love, and that we have come together to understand this gnosis and these principles so that we can speak love into form. And there is no higher purpose, in my view. And so it is with such a humble authority and heart that I affirm our holy oneness. I know there's only one here. There's only one. And it has absolutely outpictured itself as all that is individualized in its full expression. The Brahman, the infinite diversity of the isness of good. And that is what we are. We are living and moving and having our being in this infinite synastry of Indra's net of light. And we are the light itself. We are the living intelligence, individualized in a perfectly encoded way that we get to experience each other in this way, in this paradigm, in this world. And I know that what we experience tonight in our coming together is our holy oneness. It is the high and holy agreement that where two or more can gather and agree upon what is real beyond appearances. There is the first causation. There is the grace, and that is the law under which we live. And I know something wonderful is happening. Amen. And so, in the opposite direction now is the reading, because I wanted as many of you to hear it as possible. This is a reading tonight, very brief, from a book called The Master Speaks. I read from it last week. This is Prayer Warrior Week 4. And it's written by Joel S. Goldsmith. And this is chapter 4, entitled Error. Our conscious oneness with God constitutes our oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Meditation should result in the consciousness of the presence of God. This conscious awareness of the presence of God is the foundation of our entire experience. Since God is infinite good, our being consciously one with God means that we are consciously one with infinite good. Then we do not have to try to get at one with a good home, a good automobile, a good wife, a good friend, a good book, a good teacher. We only have to realize at one with God, and God appears to us. God becomes visible and manifests to us as the good home, the good wife, the good automobile, or the good anything else that may be our need at the moment. When we try to help ourselves or others through spiritual realization, it is the Christ that does the work. It is the Christ that dispels the illusion. It is the Christ that operates as healer, reformer, supplier. What is the Christ? The Christ is our individual consciousness when that consciousness has been released from its fear, hate, or love of error. Now let us put that into practical, usable form. Let us assume that there is a shadow on the wall. As we look at it, we can see that it is a shadow. And of course, we do not hate it or fear it or love it. If I thought that that shadow were some kind of an evil presence, I might very well hate it or fear it. And if I thought it was a person, I might love it. Knowing it as shadow, however, I can neither hate nor fear nor love it. I look on it with complete indifference, knowing that its only existence is a shadow, virtually nothingness without substance. When I'm called upon for help and recognize that the problem, whether physical, mental, moral, or financial, has no more substance than that shadow, that it is not power, it is not presence, it is not reality, that attitude is what determines my healing ability. That constitutes my degree of Christhood. When I can face any form of disease, sin, lack, limitation, or death, and take the same attitude towards it that I do towards that shadow, with no desire to erase it, no desire to wipe it out, no desire to get rid of it or overcome it or rise above it, no desire to deny it, but merely with the ability to look at it and say, you're a shadow, so what? Then harmony is revealed. I'll stop with that. That's just the beginning part of error from the Master Speaks. And I wanted to bring it out and up today because we are, gone on this journey now to come to this kind of conversation where we are asking, where is the error occurring when you perceive error? Does anybody know?
In our perception.
In our perception. That's right. And so when we are practitioners and somebody's coming to us for some kind of help, and we say, okay, I'm going to close my eyes now and give a treatment. It's obvious, and we've said it 100 times, we know the treatment is for who?
Our perception.
Ourselves. And if they're listening, then what? Now we have, skin in the game, right? Somebody's listening. And so now it can't be but a natural response to want to have your prayer produce a result in some way. Maybe it comforts them. Maybe it, that's where you got to look. This is where it gets tricky and you can slip back into metaphysics because the prayer becomes kind of an unconscious tool where you're trying to teach something to somebody over there in a way, or you're trying to say something in a way to produce a result over there. And that's where, well, your subconscious will know you're out of principle. and you won't have that agreement between the Unapili, the Uhain, and the Amakua. You've got to have the agreement of all three. Maybe we should talk about the Ho'oponopono a little bit, and its nature of this Jungian recapitulation process that we always seem to have to go through. When we do Ho'oponopono, and that's kind of where we're leaving off. Did everybody watch the videos? Okay. So if we are going to do this kind of practice, which is a really easy practice to do like you could be doing it in your sleep if you get good at just doing it all the time to the molecules and everything. But it's to be understanding why you're doing it, what you're doing, and why you're doing this Ho'oponopono process. And so Dr. Hewlin said, it's really our only purpose of why we're here is because you have cleaning to do. And so once all the inmates went home from the criminal insane ward, he didn't go look for another job. He didn't need to. He had done his job. He was on to the next thing. And so we don't do Ho'oponopono to affect a change out there. That's important to remember. You might look out and see a problem and think, oh, let me do some Ho'oponopono and hopefully the problem will go away. As if it's all out there. Close. The Jungian work. That is the shamanic work. That is what we, did first when we started to learn this technology. Is we really learned how to inventory, our pillars of how we were socialized and the filters of how we perceive and all of the meaning making we've given so many of the archetypes of our life, men, teachers, educate, academia. Some people come to these spiritual studies and their inner kid gets triggered trying to turn in papers and getting grades. Some people have a lot of wounds from being, red ink on the paper and F and all this kind of thing, in academia, it suddenly doesn't feel very spiritual anymore to write a paper, all that kind of stuff. Well, that's your stuff. You get to look at it. This is this kind of stuff. You got to look at it and go deep, 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 deep as you can. And that's what the Ho'oponopono is. You're just, anything that comes up into your realm is asking you to clean on it from the inner depth of your being. You're cleaning on your own inner depth of your being, on the filter. It just erases the garbage, and this grace drops in. That's all that you can do, is do your one little part, he would say, and grace will do the rest. It's not my business what it looks like or when or how. It's only my business to take 100% responsibility and do what needs to be done in the moment, which is to clean. So now if this is sort of like how you're learning to walk around in the world, I mean, I guess that's how it was for me. I was studying the course very early on, 18 years old. I found that book. So still didn't understand it till I was 30. When I was 30, my brand new baby had a fever. And I had, I didn't know what to do when you're a new mom, like getting in the tub, it was like all the panic and everything. But it wasn't stopping. And there was this course, and I hadn't done anything since having the baby. And it was this new group, and I went. And you know, one that day, while the kid had the fever, we were reading some passage in the book, and I was like, wait a minute, stop right here. What is this book saying? Is this saying that I'm responsible for my son having a fever? And the facilitators at the time, you know, didn't know how to answer it philosophically, because the course is trying to say you are dreaming. You are co-creating a dream, just like you do when you sleep in your bed. But we're doing it also collectively. It's a mass hijacking kind of hypnosis that ancient occultists have known. That's what spelling is. That's what the word is. That's what all these symbols, it's like people are only starting to wake up to what was kept occult secrets for the last, 2000 years. But now we know. And it's true, it's literal. And these are the same things that the shaman indigenous conversations are. They use the word, you're dreaming, dream a new dream. So it's not that I was responsible. I didn't cause the fever. I'm not responsible for the fever because I caused it. I'm responsible for perceiving fever. That's it. And there's nothing I can do about it except say, I'm so sorry. I am perceiving you this way. Please forgive me. Thank you for reminding me that we live in God. It doesn't matter what I'm perceiving. I will close my eyes and deny the validity of it. That's a denial. I love you. I won't deny that it's happening. I won't deny that my son was having a very real experience. I'm not denying the phenomenal part of it. I'm not denying the cause and effects. I'm not denying the experience. I am denying the power that the matrix gives it, that I accidentally agreed with because I didn't know to ask questions. Now you're allowed to ask questions. Who am I? Why am I here? How did we get here? You're allowed to ask those questions now. So, I am sort of getting to the part of it where, in quantum theory, it's the same conversation, that this is an observer effect happening all the time, and that we collapse the wave function when we perceive. And so we've talked about it in all these different ways, and that our subconscious, subjective, Unapili self, the five senses, our self-talk, how we filter our perception, the pillars of how we were socialized, all the things we decided about ourselves and God and love and money and your body, all of it. all of that, we know we have to uncover that. Oh, woe is me to see what I see what I see, is what Ophelia said right before she took her life in Hamlet. Oh, woe is me to see what I see what I see. So we have to be responsible for that part. And we do this kind of personal responsibility, spiritual authority internally. And then somebody comes and says, okay, well, pray for me, pray for me, pray for me right now. And now suddenly it may not be that easy to, because now, you know, there's a listener, you've got your adrenaline kicked in, and there's the principles, and you don't want to, you know, you don't want to say wrong, you don't want to say, you know, like all the things start happening. The left brain starts evaluating and judging and criticizing, and and you you know, you're gonna speak this prayer from your heart with sincerity and your genuine, sincere understanding of these principles. And there they are bleeding, right? Like, let's be real about it. Let's just say, you know, they're not okay. They're in the hospital bed. It smells. The thing is beeping, you know, and you're gonna pray now. Are you really gonna say John is the radiant, you know, John is the health, John is the health, John is healing, John is the healing light of God? Can you say that really in realization? No. But what can we say? What do we know? This is where the argument comes in. So, you know, we can't talk about argumentative prayer. We can't talk about denials unless we are really understanding the principles. Because if we don't, we could accidentally be transmitting to the individual listening to us what sounds like a spiritual bypass and what could alienate them. Some people are very attached to their illness. Some people are very attached. They are arguing for their problems. Okay, so the argument is always in what is real and what is error. And so Joel is talking about error, sin, disease, death, lack, limitation. That's what he's calling error. If you look out in the world and you see war, sin, disease, lack, limitation, you're looking at error. And the error's not out. The principle says the error's not out there. It's right here. It's what I was perceiving with. So let me close my eyes and come to what is real beyond my senses. And I have to have the arsenal that hopefully you guys now are having from all these weeks of plagiarizing and harvesting your recognition and unification steps, because these are the steps that this individual is going to be listening to see. What do they know about anything about power or truth or reality or cancer? What do they know about me? And when they hear you unifying them, that is when their nervous system will relax. You'll start with the first step of gratitude very briefly, because you don't spend a lot of time in gratitude. You pray for yourself first. If you need to soak in a gratitude step, then do a prayer in your car. Then walk in lifted, so that your gratitude step is brief and inclusive, and because the substance is in recognition and unification. That's where your substance is, and of your consciousness that they're listening for. And just again, you unify yourself. And then if you had said maybe 2 or 3 sentences for yourself as the unity, third step, then you'll say at least 6 or 8 sentences for them. You want to give them, this is where you really apply the gauze of your love. The healing gauze is in the unification step. When they can hear your ability to articulate reality, the truth, and what that means for them, that's what's going to allow them to have faith in your conviction. They're going to understand your conviction at that point. And then when you get to the realization, your physiology is very high at that point. Your awareness of, you have articulated these high words. There will be a resonant frequency shift in you, especially if somebody's listening, because all these other chemicals, you're in each other's auric field sometimes, even now, even when you're on the phone, there's this magnification of agreement and energy. And so when you get to the realization, you know what quality you're praying from, because you've been praying that quality from the beginning. And it's not always black and white. If their request is around finances, okay, you would think abundance. Fine. Sometimes your intuition hears something else. Listen to that. It's not always black and white. Don't get too complicated with it. Remember the Gregg Braden reading. Thought, feeling, word. If you're going off on all these different tangents and it's all poetry, you want to be rooted in the principles. It's fine if it's beautifully, poetically coming out of you. That's fine. But it's got to be rooted in the principles and the feeling that you are, as you speak it, is the quality that you perceive in back of the world of appearances. It's just sort of like how to train yourself to be crazy. That's really what that's what the mystics class is going to be about. How to train your dragon, how to train your mind to be crazy. Really, you've got to, either you're going to be crazy or the world is crazy. Which one do you want? The world is the crazy one, but it's not coming along the ride with you. So you might as well train your mind to be crazy. And you know that when you look at something, you don't know what you're looking at. Oh God. That filthy, smelling homeless person very likely is a master, standing there with his dirty little hand out, alcohol in his breath. I don't know what I'm looking at. There's 4 windows I could look at him through, right? I never know what I'm looking at. But I know what the principle is, and that there is a God verity, a God quality seeking to express and experience itself in back of what I see. And so I will forgive myself for not seeing the quality, at least right off. Sometimes I don't ever see it. I just know it. I just know because I know, it's a principle. I know it kinesthetically. You just you just have to learn not to believe your eyeballs anymore. How to train yourself to become crazy. So the argument then is around what 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 is because of what is. So if I did say in realization, if I accidentally, like, it's not an accident, but if I heard myself say, Timothy is the demonstration of the abundance of the Divine Mother. And that's my realization sentence. Timothy is the demonstration of the abundance of the Divine Mother. It's more like a unity statement, really, isn't it? But I did say Timothy is. So Timothy is demonstrating abundance in every way in his life. That's really the better out of principle example. Timothy is demonstrating abundance now. Instead, I would say abundance and joy and philanthropy and givingness is overflowing and outpicturing and dissolving everything unlike itself in Timothy's bank account, in his life, in his relationships. But if I did say Timothy is demonstrating abundance, I would probably argue that. I would have to argue that. If I was awake and I was, aware of what I was doing, my prayer would probably say, Timothy is demonstrating abundance because God is abundance and God is all there is. And there is no place where God is not demonstrating in Timothy's life. Therefore, Timothy's life is the full demonstration of God now. So did you hear the argument? I didn't just say, we could say Victoria is healing. I want it to be true. But it would be better to argue that. Here's why, because I love etymology. Healing is a 12th century word from the word hail, which means whole. So if I said, Victoria, her body temple is healing now because the wholeness of God is all that there is. And it is the information even now out picturing as every cell in her back. There's the argument. Did you hear it? So if you just stay with subject being the quality or the principle, the gnosis of the infinite divine mind reveals and demonstrates and outpictures itself to each of these individuals in ways they can feel, sense, and perceive. I just stated the principle. And you can't argue with that. But if I said these individuals are perceiving the divine gnosis of God now, I'm trying to make that happen. I've made you the subject, not divine gnosis. And I can't really say that unless I want to argue, because in their attending this class, they have turned to the Father's house. And I know, just like that father and the prodigal son, the Spirit of the living God comes rushing to these individuals. That's the principle. That's the law. I said it. I argued that. So it does require you to, understand and articulate principles. I think we should go over what Ernest Holmes wrote. Did y'all read that? Different Methods of Treatment. I can bring it up. Well, just pull it out of your notes. I wanted to just point out a few of the paragraphs here. He's talking about how there's two kinds of prayers, an argumentative prayer and a realization prayer. And, I think it's kind of interesting, the distinctions he's making. And this is Ernest Holmes, a metaphysician. And he is saying that the demonstration is what, like the dissolving of the cancer. It's in this whole, did y'all read it? He's saying the demonstration is what the practitioner is praying for. And that's because he is a metaphysician telling you. He touches a little bit on the mystical side of it. But he does talk about that as the demonstration. And let's just read this part right here. On page 172. It's the third paragraph down. Mary Jones comes to John Smith and says, I have tuberculosis. In answer to this, he states, the word I now speak is for Mary Jones. She is a perfect and complete manifestation of pure spirit, and pure spirit cannot be diseased. Consequently, she is not diseased. This is an argument in the mind of John Smith, trying to bring out the evidence in favor of Mary Jones' perfection. It is an argument which produces certain conclusion in his mind, and as a result, it sets a certain law in motion for Mary Jones. As John does this day after day, he gradually becomes convinced of her spiritual perfection. This is the argumentative method of treating. All argumentative statements merely conduct the mind of the practitioner to a place where he believes what he is saying. And so I'm just sort of kind of trying to come at it more from the agape, what I learned at agape, what I learned from my teacher, Reverend Michael, what I've learned from all the shamanic teachers that I've studied. Do you believe what you're saying when you say, I don't have any examples of the prayers, but this is important. You must believe what you're saying. It must reach you on a deep, subjective, subconscious level. That is where you will meet Mary Jones, you see. Way there, way down in there. And is vast. That's the vastness. We're not responsible for everything in the collective of the human race. We're just responsible for ourselves. And that is a 24-hour full-time job. So, does anybody have another part of this reading that they want to point out? So when he talks about the realization method, he's talking about a lot of really kind of how Joel tends to talk about it. Keep your mind on God. Don't argue with the condition. Don't even think about the person's name sometimes. Just get to God, get to the quality. Keep it on the one side of the argument. There is only one power. And so I don't know. I think you can have both in any one prayer, you know. For me, the prayer is all about recognition and unification. So that when the realization rises in me, it just comes out like, well, this must be so. A plus B equals C. And if you have trained yourself to speak it from the quality, what the quality does, what the principle does, then you'll stay out of this habit of trying to make something happen over there with your client or your patient or whatever. Let's read that. Because I did talk a lot about Joel and demonstration. Let's read about what Ernest says demonstration is on page 174. When and what is a demonstration? In the language of metaphysics, a demonstration is made when the thing is accomplished which the one treating desires to achieve, whether it be health, happiness, or abundance. A demonstration is a manifestation. It is prayer answered. When the word of a practitioner takes form, this is demonstration. When desire is given a subjective mold, and then becomes objectified in the life of the one for whom the practitioner is working. This is demonstration. The practitioner, of course, gives thanks as he makes his demand on the infinite, knowing that supply and demand are one, and that his request is instantly manifest on the invisible plane. Before they call, will I answer, is the divine promise. We cannot demonstrate beyond our ability to mentally embody an idea. The argument is between our experience, what the world believes, and what we are convinced is the truth. Let's talk about that. That is so important. Those three things right there. The argument is between our experience, because throughout this class, that's what we've been talking about, is getting out of concepts of this thing called God into the experience, direct contact with it through being interested in it when you're walking around, but also having a practice, a meditation practice, having a dream practice, having a journal practice, becoming interested. And so we cannot demonstrate our ability beyond our ability to mentally embody an idea. This is what Ernest Holmes calls mental equivalent. And I think Reverend Michael's term is spiritual prototype. If you um it's you can do it with numbers, money. I have had the luxury of being able to support my kid when he's 25 now, but throughout being a single mom, I did accounting. I had my own business, and bookkeeping really, and they were all very, very wealthy people. And so I know what a lot of money looks like. And what's funny, I told that story in the last class. I'll tell it again. It wasn't until, because I had decided early on I wasn't going to be one of these rude, rich, fake people in life. Early on, I decided that. Because I had an experience as in a junior high and high school, and so I went to this bohemian route. I mean, to this day, I shop at the thrift store. I have so much fun, and I wasn't going to put value in any of that. I learned the tarot and drove off in my VW van. Didn't even bother to go to college. Well, I was gonna, but I gave it up. Anyway, it wasn't until I was 30 years old with a baby and I could not get a new refrigerator that broke and new tires in the same month. And I realized what I had done. I was studying, I was new. I was new in these teachings. And I was like, there it is. And had to clean that up. I had to look at that. I didn't want to have anything to do with being rich. And I went and did the Landmark Forum, and the guy said, well, that's as close as you'll ever get to money until you heal that, work on that. So, but what it did give me though is I have a mental equivalent for money. I know what a good amount of money is. I know what a lot of money is. I know what money, I've seen $6 million blow out the window, and so, but what's your mental equivalent? I know my whole life I had this mental image of having this house with, white curtains and the air blowing and, probably some marble floors, and I have this little cottage by the bay. This was what I got. I got the mental equivalent. I didn't get this big marble house on Malibu. I have this little cottage by the Chesapeake Bay. There's eagles and dolphins. Well, why would it be some big mega house? I said I didn't want any of that, but I changed my mind. I can want more wealth. It doesn't have to look like marble floors. Anyway, you've got to have a mental equivalent. It's all about the zeros when it comes to money. $1, $1 million, it's all zeros. And your mental equivalent. So, there's three things here: your experience, what the world believes, which is the collective. And that's where you have to train yourself to become crazy. And then what you are convinced is the truth. And that's where your spiritual resume comes into play. And what kind of evidence do you have in your life of this living presence of love that is unfolding you and that is lifting you and carrying you? Do you have evidence? Do you have a conviction that the law always returns fulfilled? Do you have conviction in these laws? These laws are so literal. And I'm telling you, whatever this language that I've used, basically you are a divine instrument created with an incredible amount of power to change material reality, to bring people back from the dead, to heal anything. You have that power. I have that power, supposedly. I mean, that's why I'm doing this. I want to understand it. We have this power, and it has been hijacked. Why do you think that is? So, literally, that's why they call it spelling. It does require you to cast new spells, to speak these words, to speak truth. You're not casting spells for stuff. You are speaking truth. That's the difference. That's what we mean when we say one in God is a majority. A metaphysician is a spellcaster. You're praying for an outcome. He says right here, the demonstration is what the practitioner desires to achieve. But if you want to sort of spiral through these stages of consciousness out of that second law manifestor consciousness into the mystic conscious sort of it, not that these are linear stages, they're cyclical. Then you've got to, the desire to achieve. Yes, if a little boy, mother comes to me, please pray for my son, he's got cancer. I definitely want the cancer to go away. It's true. I desire that. I will still have to close my eyes and forgive myself for the whole thing, perceiving the whole thing, and then speak in a way, speaking the word in the room over myself, over whatever's listening, the molecules that are listening. I will speak that word, but it will have to be free of my agenda. Because if I'm doing it in order to dissolve it, then I'm in the boxing ring with it. Any questions? So the argument just stays right up here because God is the only causation, because God does not contradict its own name and nature. Here are the arguments. Because the only thing that is real does not change. Because she has never left God. You can find wonderful argumentative statements all throughout the readings. We could probably find one right here with Ernest Holmes. Why don't somebody try to find one? Find a principle in this and point it out. I saw one. He says sense. It was the word sense. Okay, here's one. Top of page 172. He's saying, A thing which is known, it's at the very top, second sentence. A thing which is known by any part of universal mind is known by every part of it, for it is an undivided whole. So that's a great principle you can use in an argument. I know that there is you can argue that by saying there's only one mind, it is the mind of God, it is the mind of peace, and this peace is making itself known to Amma, and Amma is living in this peace because this peace is known by every part of itself as itself, and it is an undivided whole, therefore wholly one with Amma and a part of her. You hear the argument? I'm going to pass out a reading this week from H. Emily Cady called Denials. And she is an early New Thought writer that really ended up sort of being a unity publicist. You know, she did a lot of publications through Unity. She's a writer. She was a homeopathic doctor before the AMA destroyed homeopathy. So you can see I have a little grudge against an institution. I need to do my 28-day exercise. The American Medical Association. They did. They took over. The Rothschild Rockefeller regime funded a whole thing, and they got rid of all the midwives and all the chiropractics and all the naturopaths and considered all that and set up their standards and created the model that we have today in the West. That all happened in the 1800s, right around the time of the Industrial Revolution. And the big Darwin's theory, 1860. So see, all that just changed the psyche. Before the Industrial Revolution, you know, we were living very lunarly, very earth oriented. And so these denials she's talking about it's an important conversation because, again, when you go to pray for somebody, you can't deny the condition. You can't say you don't want to do that. If you do that, that could be very painful for you to deny the experience that somebody's having. But what are we going to deny? What can we deny? We can deny our perception. We can deny what we make it mean. We can deny the authority we give the medical industry. I do that all the time. I am famous for it.
The five senses.
The five senses. Deny the.
Yeah, the way the mind models, because we can only contemplate in our mind what we have a model for. So.
Yes. Beautiful. We can deny the power that a diagnosis has. You can deny the causation that an illness has or an experience. You can deny, basically that's what you're denying. You're relegating, as Joel would say, error
to its rightful place. Nothingness. Nothing. Nothing to be feared, nothing to be loved, nothing to be hated, nothing. It's just error. It's about as valid as the dream your dog is having when his paws are moving. It's about as valid as a shadow on the wall. Now, our job is to tap that and to understand that and tap it in the face of, and maybe that's what we've been here. That's what we've been called for. That's why we've been born on the planet at such a time as this. It's crazy right now. And it's really important. I only give you the prayer assignments to write one prayer for, but I would still write prayers for yourself until you have written at least 52 prayers so that your mind your left brain can relax and not be worried about like, what do I sound like? Do I understand these principles? What step am I on?
I I feel like constricted when I'm writing a prayer. Um, because I feel like I get so in my left mind, like, oh wait, that belongs here. Where when I'm saying a prayer, like I'm going through the steps, but there's like unification can easily kind of blend into realization, and recognition can like it blends because it builds on each other. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I find it so much more difficult, like not as authentic, I suppose, like the feeling sense of it, the feelingness of it when I write it
Yeah.
doesn't feel as powerful.
Yeah. I agree. It's left brain, it is language, and you're writing, it's academic. It's true. But there's something about writing that does wire it into the left brain. And as we said, if your left brain is not busy, it's going to hijack you into judgment and evaluation. And so you got to give it something to do. It's in charge of these kinds of logistical things. And so give it something to do. It memorizes words. Let it memorize 2 or 3 more unification things, or get some more principles you can use in your arguments. Give it a task. It will memorize these sentences for you. And then your right brain is free. And this is how mediumship works, by the way. I mean, ultimately, isn't that what we're trying to do, is become a medium for the Christ to articulate as our word? Okay, well, in mediumship, well, I just know, like, maybe like in communicating with invisible, like the information, sometimes the library is your memories, your associations, your language is what spirits, for lack of a better word, ancestors, invisible forces will use to communicate. I have a whole arsenal of symbols because I live my life like that. I have this great book, Sidewalk Oracles. And so I know what 3 crows means, and I know when it's from left to right. And I have a thing, like I've set that up. And you do too. You have a library bank of of what things mean. And you can create a library bank of principles that you know how to articulate. And if you write them enough and you articulate them enough, one day you will find yourself standing in front of people and you will be just, it's just being prayed through you because you got it so deeply into your subconscious that it's there. It's like you just pulled it out. You don't have to think up anything. I have a whole arsenal of things I say almost every day here. My violet flame decrees. I repeat, I've got my divine director affirmation that I wrote when I was 20. I've got oath of manifestation. I say this every day. You know, the Hanuman Chalisa, chanted 100 times. You know, it's about you and your subjective subconscious self and what you deeply believe and know, what you have a mental equivalent for. Have you ever experienced a healing, a testimony? Do you have a mental equivalent of speaking your word and then having somebody say, you won't believe what just happened? I went to the doctor. It's gone. Get that mental equivalent. Get that. Go for that. Go for those mental equivalents of the answered testimony, the answered prayer. When Greg Braden says thought, feeling, word, one portal, that Vesica Pisces is become, you want to be in the joy of the Thanksgiving step. That's how powerful you are. You have been hijacked and for generations collectively hypnotized to believe that you don't have any power and that you're a victim of circumstance and that you're here by chance out of a primordial soup and that there's not enoughness and that you don't have any power. You have to use the medical model and be addicted to big pharma in order to have whatever. That's what they would want. Am I going off in the wrong direction? Okay.
Can I ask you a question about writing? I spent, I do voice to text when I'm writing my prayers. Is that, and that's helpful. I know, because Cara, you said it's hard to feel which I absolutely felt that with writing. And same with, like, I just finished practitioner studies the first year, and it was the same with all of that growth work. I'm like, I'm just not inspired to sit here and, like, think and write. And so when I did voice to text, it was made just a massive difference.
You know, when I was going through, we didn't have all that. And I think it's great because you still have to read it and edit it and go back and put your capitals in, and you might switch a word here and there. And I think that's a left brain enough.
That's what I ended up doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's enough that I feel I definitely feel it as a written as a substance, written. But I was grateful not to be beholden to, like, okay, I have to, like, sit here and, like, write something. I mean, whether it's trauma from just the education system or, someone telling me what to do, which I am always like,
Gonna work itself out one way or the other. Here or there. Yeah, that works for me. I don't, I'm fine with that because it's still, you're still gonna edit and perfect it and put it in the template and all that. But it is, and it's not something you'll do forever. I don't write my prayers anymore. I would maybe, but I don't. But I needed to for a long time because um everybody's, you're listening to everybody else, and then you go into your God voice and oh la la la, and it really, it's like, do I know these principles or not? I think that's really the bottom line. Like poetry, God voice, all that, like, what are you saying? And can you argue it against a phenomenal reality? Do you know what you're saying enough to deny the validity of their pain? People are in pain. People are even mad at me that I'm not upset. Is anybody mad at you because you're not upset enough?
Politically, yeah,
Yeah,
all the time. Like, do something. I'm like,
Yeah.
I am doing something.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's a narrow road, anyway. I want to practice. We have 45 minutes. And I think we should do the prayer thing again, where you guys are praying out loud for the group. Now, I put you in groups of 3 last time. Maybe we could do the pair this time so that 2 people can give a treatment and you can divide up the steps and work it out together in your breakout room, and then you come back and do it. However, I want to have it be real treatment. Like, okay, so Rev M and Annie, you'll be a group. Joshua and Kara, Zuri. You want me to call you Zuri? Not Vanessa, but Zuri.
I didn't even realize my name is
Oh,
oh my god, my daughter's our iPad.
oh, okay, Vanessa and Susan and Timothy and Nicole, and then you guys are off camera, so I don't know how much you want to participate. So you know your partner is.
So is Vanessa Zuri?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And let's do the same prayer again. What should we pray for? Amma, do you want prayer?
Sure, I'll take prayer anytime.
What's the condition?
I'm going through chemotherapy right now. It's preventative, and my prayer is that it works, that I'm clear and clean of any possible residue of anything that doesn't belong in my body. That was long.
Beautiful. Okay. So you have your assignment. How long do you need? You'll divide up the steps, 3 and 3. How long do you need? 10 minutes? 10? Okay. Now let me try to do this right. Okay, so in room 1, I'm going to put Rev M and Annie. In room 2, I'm putting Kara and Joshua. In room 3, I'm putting Zuri and Susan. And in room 4, I'm gonna put Timothy and Nicole. And have I missed anybody? Okay.
I'm here, but I need to be off camera. But and if it doesn't go, I'm just happy to listen and just hold space. I can be like a vigil holder.
Okay. Bunmi, are you available to be in a partnership with Zara?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. All right. I'm going to assign. I gotta figure that out. Yeah, you should have your rooms there. Oh, Bunmi. I'll put Amma in the room with you two. Um, okay. Everybody should have their room